Überall ist schon rege Betrieb. Wir sehen viele Menschen, alle beteiligen sich bereits in Werkstätten. Das ist wunderschön zu sehen. Und das Tolle ist, dass wir neben den ganzen Werkstätten auch noch dazu ein wahnsinnig tolles Bühnenprogramm haben. Dieses Bühnenprogramm eröffnen wir jetzt und hier. Fühlt euch frei, dazuzustoßen. Jetzt tritt auf Cory Andreen. Cory Andreen ist Cupping-Weltmeister des Jahres 2012 und wird uns jetzt einen wunderbaren Vortrag halten zum Thema Kaffee. Was die Wahrnehmung von Kaffee in unserer Gesellschaft ist und wie wir Kaffee genießen können, wenn nicht sogar sollten. Ich präsentiere Cory Andreen, Manifesto for Contemporary Coffee Experience.
Danke, Philipp. Ich weiß nicht, wie das geht. So. Hallo, guten Morgen. Danke, Philipp. Danke, Markthalle 9. I'm going to do this in English just because it's going to be a little bit easier for me to communicate some of the more kind of complicated concepts involved, but we can do a Q&A in German afterwards. I hope that's okay with everyone. So, as Philip said, my name's Cory Andreen. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., but have spent about 8 years in Berlin now. And about 5.5 years ago, I opened a coffee shop here called Café CK in Prenzlauer Berg. CK was a cafe that opened at a time when the specialty scene in Berlin wasn't experiencing the boom it is now. So we were working really hard to try and find ways to push quality in ways that others in Berlin weren't really doing. And in doing so, we certainly learned a lot about coffee, but we also learned a lot about our customers and how customers would kind of accept the different kind of coffee we were trying to offer and even the different kind of experience we were trying to offer. And along the way, we definitely learned what kind of the limitations of the space were, of the cafe environment. So that's what I'd like to address today, is to talk about how the cafe can even limit a progressive kind of coffee agenda. But in order to do so, we should probably ask the question, why is a progressive coffee agenda necessary? There are a lot of reasons for that. First and foremost, I'd say, is that colonialism is over. It's time to stop viewing coffee as kind of the staple raw good that people view it as. It's not something to be extracted from some kind of third world country and brought here to be served as cheaply as possible. We need to find ways of kind of fostering relationships with the producers, recognizing quality, and giving them their due credit. And one of the ways in which to do this is to shift customer perspectives, expectations, and just shift the cafe model entirely. So another great reason for changing the model is just consumer empowerment. A lot of people, as interest in coffee grows, we have more and more people drinking coffee, but it's still very poorly understood by most people who drink it. Some people say they like it strong or not so strong. Even they might not really understand what those words mean. They might not understand what causes a coffee to taste strong, not strong, be sour, bitter, any of these things. And these are all things which we as a coffee industry are understanding better and better all the time. So it's important to find a model where we can share this with customers and kind of bring them along with us. And finally, it's important to kind of expand the options out there in order to reward producers of the highest quality coffee better. We need to pay them better, and that means we need to start having truly high-end coffee compared to the truly low-end coffee. I mean, right now, you might be paying €1 or €1.50 for the cheapest coffee, and the fanciest espresso you get out there is maybe double that, about €3. That's not much of a price difference, especially when you think, you can get a glass of wine for €2.50, or you can get a glass of wine for €25. There's a completely different price discrepancy, and that means that in the mentality of the consumer, the product is viewed in an entirely different way. So all of these tie into the first point, which is just in order to create sustainable relationships, in order to have nice coffee all the time, we need to improve the way consumers relate to producers. And by changing the model of the cafe, we can do that. So I'd like to start with talking about the challenges in creating a new model by talking about existing models of coffee service, of cafes. I have some photos. I'm not sure how well they'll be able to be seen. Here we go. The first one is a McCafe in Hong Kong. It looks just as you would expect. It has a gloss to it. There's an espresso machine, a grinder, a case filled with pastry and food, and in the middle it's a register. Behind that is a menu board with all of your options. It's pretty standard. So when you walk in, you know what to expect. You expect to wait in line, choose something from this board, maybe get it and move on. It's definitely a process like an assembly line. You get something, you go on, and it doesn't really encourage any kind of deeper interaction than that. Next up, I have a photo of one of my favorite cafes here in Berlin. It's West Berlin, close to Checkpoint Charlie. It's a great cafe. They serve high-quality coffee, but if you can tell, the setup is exactly the same. You have an espresso machine, a grinder, a case filled with pastries and some food, a register in the middle, and a menu behind that. It means that even though what they're serving is completely different from the quality, the setup is the same. When a customer walks in, the customer expects to wait in line, get what they ordered, and move on, like an assembly line. And this is in an area with a lot of tourist traffic. So, any tourists who walk in, some of them might understand from the design of the space that they're getting something different, that they should be appreciating it differently. But it's really unfair to actually expect that from them when the model is exactly the same as the fast food coffee environment. I mean, this is, no matter how delightful that atmosphere is, the model of service is still a model of fast food service. And it's one where it's hard to kind of push a progressive coffee agenda. So next up, I have a photo of another kind of cafe model. This is the Café Einstein Stammhaus in Kurfürstenstraße. Lovely old Viennese-style cafe. Everyone's wearing white shirts, wooden bar. You can sit at a table, and you have really nice silverware place setting. So you walk in, and this is a place where, as opposed to the McCafe in Hong Kong, you feel like this is going to be nice. I'm going to get nice, attentive service, and the quality of the food should be good. And the coffee is pretty good. But again, this would be a poor model to push a progressive agenda at a time when we should be kind of celebrating the new things coffee has to offer, which include things like seasonality. Coffee is grown, or it's harvested at different times in different hemispheres, which means just like strawberries, certain coffees should be only enjoyed during certain times of the year. And things like variety, just like apples or wine, different coffees can have vastly different flavors based on their varietal. So a place like Café Einstein is a really poor place to start trying to introduce people to a variety. Most people want to come in and have their Kleiner Braune or some other Viennese coffee drink. But what's really interesting to me about this is the Cafe Einstein model, because the next slide is also a Cafe Einstein at a shopping mall in Rotterdam. So you see, this has the same setup as the Mick Cafe, or even as West Berlin, where you have a pastry case, espresso machine, and a menu board. Um, and I find this fascinating because the idea from Cafe Einstein is that it's the same coffee, whether you're at their Stammhaus or whether you're at this cafe. But kind of what it triggers in a customer is completely different. When you walk into one, you feel like, oh, I should behave myself, things are going to be nice here, I'm going to get service, I'm going to get a certain quality of food. Whereas here, you walk in and you feel like you're at a McDonald's, I'm going to get my coffee, and I'm going to keep moving. So the perceptions are completely different. So the consequences of this, as coffee has been changing, because coffee has been getting a lot better over the past 15 years. For anyone who hasn't noticed, it's actually been getting much better from the green to what we're understanding about roasting to what we understand about brewing, even to what we understand about the water involved. It's been getting better and better. And that's why there's more of a diversity available now as well. It's because it's been getting better, there are more reasons to enjoy different kinds of coffee. So the problem is, with these as our standard models for serving and selling coffee, customers tend to not be very receptive to the new kind of coffee available, which is understandable, you know. So customers will come in expecting convenience, and maybe they'll see their familiar cafe model of an espresso machine and a register, and all of a sudden someone says, well, you can't have sugar or milk with that because we're special. And the customer says, well, I walked in and I saw an espresso machine and a menu board and a register. I didn't automatically understand that this was different. I'm sorry. And so the customer feels bad, and all of a sudden, your mission of trying to introduce people to something new, something different, has failed. At the same time, customers who do get it, or whether it's people interested in coffee, people interested in food, people interested in wine, they go to check out the place that's supposed to have the good coffee, and since it's built on convenience and volume most often, there's no chance to talk to anyone about it. You get pushed through the line like everyone else, and if you try to have a conversation with the barista about the coffee, he might frantically try to give you some answers, but the model just doesn't really work for fostering any kind of environment where a customer can comfortably learn and experience something new. So this is a lot of what I was thinking about for the past few years, in fact. And earlier this year, I had the opportunity to open a bar, a coffee bar in Washington, D.C. And it was with a great team of people who had a sherry bar in the evenings and were interested in doing a coffee service. And this was perfect. This is the kind of the moment I've been waiting for to try out a new model of coffee service. So I have a picture of the bar. This is the bar. So the idea is the space is completely devoid of those things that would normally characterize a cafe. Because the goal is from the moment someone walks through the door, we want to really just eschew kind of the familiar coffee template, to kind of get rid of the familiar completely, so that when people come in, they don't have either the expectation of waiting in line and getting a really big latte or whatever, or they're not coming in and expecting a kleiner Braune. We wanted people to come in and be open. So the idea was to get rid of their expectations, but to still make it welcoming enough so that people aren't scared away, because that can be a big problem as well. You don't want people to walk in and be so confused that they run away. So I think the bar was kind of a logical step in that direction, Most people here have probably been in a bar at one point in their life and have felt comfortable there. So by creating this space, we wanted people to feel comfortable, and the long bar was also really important because it means that the baristas making the coffee have maximum face time with the customers. It's really all about communication and just encouraging people to explore and get to know something new. So. Right, we wanted to create a space that set itself apart from the existing cafe model. We also wanted to create a model of service that would be completely inclusive because if when you're trying to kind of win people over to your cause, the worst thing you can be is exclusive. So we wanted to create a model of service that was understanding and was really willing to talk with everyone through what their coffee tastes were and answer any questions involved. So one of the big challenges was having a knowledgeable enough staff. It definitely means we spend a lot of time training, reading, but it really pays off because the customers really appreciate it and tend to come away with a better understanding of why they like what they like. The next slide would be our coffee service itself. So, like I said, it was important that from the moment people walk through the door, their expectations are changed. But we really needed to maintain that every step of the way. So this is how we're serving the black coffee. It's something that we tried at CK here in Berlin, starting probably about 3 years ago. But the idea was that, every part of the coffee experience is a trigger. For most people, it's a ritual of some kind, whether it's a social ritual, whether it's about addiction or utility, or whether it's just really enjoying the sensory experience. It's a kind of ritual. And so different parts of the ritual will trigger different things, especially with a black coffee, or any kind of coffee, really. When you serve it, a lot of people have a trigger to individualize it. So they'll add a certain amount of sugar, a certain amount of cream, and customers really like to make it their own. They really individualize the experience. And when you give them that familiar ceramic cup, that's the first thing they think of, is to add milk to make it a certain color, add sugar to make it a certain color, things like that. So rather than discouraging people from using milk or sugar, we thought it was much more important to encourage them not to use it in a kind of subversive way. So by using something that they were familiar with from other sensory experience, in this case a whiskey tumbler and a wine carafe, we thought they would be, first of all, it would kind of break that connection for them that the ceramic cup might cause. And at the same time, if anyone is a whiskey drinker or a wine drinker, it might trigger that thing in their head that just says, well, I'll take a sip of this before doing anything else to it. So the idea is, rather than just being violent with someone's very personal ritual and saying, no, you're doing it wrong, rather to say, try it this way. And it's been amazing. I mean, when we started it here in Berlin, our sugar and milk requests plummeted, just went way down, and you would often see people not even think about it, just take a sip, and then have their eyes light up with surprise. And so it's been a really great way to just kind of introduce people to this in a very natural way without having to tell them it's different. They experience it for themselves, which is really rewarding for people. Part of being all-inclusive was also including things like mixed drinks. There's also this, it's called a white Colombian. It's a drink made with cream, egg whites, and sugar. And the idea is that it plays with the very buttery characteristics that Colombian coffees really have. But that's an example of how we really want to offer something for everyone. It's not just for black coffee. It's not a place to tell people the way they should be enjoying their coffee. It really goes back to trying to bring the consumers closer to the producers and to help the people drinking the coffee understand the different values in different coffees and to better understand what their own tastes are. So something like this has been great as kind of a gateway to talk to people about why use a certain coffee for this drink and why not use a different coffee. As a result, um, feedback has been amazing in DC. At Mockingbird Hill, we've had people who are already interested in coffee, interested consumers, whether they're professionals or amateurs, revel in the opportunity to come in. We have 15 to 20 different coffees on the menu every day. We offer flights. It's just kind of it's been great seeing how much people appreciate it and being able to have that kind of time with them to talk about things. We also have been experiencing something that I'm really excited about, which is the broader food and beverage community, sommeliers, cooks, people from other places who normally don't really care about coffee have been coming in based on the reputation that it's a place to actually experience a broad spectrum of it. And my favorite thing about this has been the large number of customers who come in and start off by introducing themselves and saying, well, I normally only drink this fast food chain of coffee, or I don't like coffee, but my friend said I need to try this because even if I don't like coffee, I will find something here that I do like. And 9 times out of 10, that's worked every time. The people come in, and when you have the time to actually talk with them about what they like, and you've completely broken away every other aspect of the experience as they've known it, the people are completely receptive to things in new ways. So it's been really interesting, and it also, for me, I hope it's something that people will take and improve on to help just kind of push coffee to a point where it needs to be in order to be sustainable for both producers and those of us working with it here, and just hopefully it'll lead to more tasty coffees out there. That's it. Any questions? So the question is the cost per cup between. Right. Okay, that's a good question. So the pricing model is done a bit differently from a normal cafe, just because of the time involved. Most cafes are built on volume, because coffee is seen as this commodity good that should be, 2 to 3 euros, something like that. It should be cheap, which, for a cafe, that's not a big margin. It's actually not a very large profit margin, so you have to sell a lot of coffee to pay the rent, to pay your employees. So obviously, if you're doing a slow model like this, where it's not built on volume, it's built on people coming and taking your time and really spending a lot of intense time individually with customers, it has to be different. So the coffees range from most of them are $5 to $7 a piece for a cup of coffee for about 220 milliliters of coffee, which compared to other places in DC, for instance, will have they'll sell about 330 mils. We have the smallest servings available in DC, as far as I know. Everyone else does larger servings and charge about $2.50 for a cup. So part of that is we're bringing in a lot of coffees that are more expensive, because the idea is to kind of introduce people to some of the better coffees out there. But they have to be priced in a way that makes sense to pay the people. But as part of making it as inclusive as possible to everyone, we also have one coffee a day that rotates through that's done on a batch brewer. And because that takes much less time, that's always available for $3. All right, thank you very much.